And welcome once again to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. Joining me, Juan Zarate, our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you as always.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about terror. Some significant developments on multiple fronts.
Yeah. Well, there's all sorts of things happening all the time, and part of this, Bob, is that the al-Qaeda movement, both its ideology and its operatives, have fractured and embedded themselves. And so, in the first instance, you have seen the atrocities committed by Boko Haram. This is the violent Islamic extremist group in the northern parts of Nigeria, fighting for an Islamic state there. The very name, the moniker that they've taken on, means Western education is haram, is forbidden. And they've demonstrated that with their actions. They've just killed 59 students in a gruesome fashion.
School children.
School children in a boarding school. It's not the first time, Bob. I mean, this is a series of these attacks on schools and students, slitting throats, burning them to death. Just horrendous brutality. And this one seems to have tipped the balance in terms of consciousness within Nigeria, because people know that there's a conflict underway, but you finally have the president, Goodluck Jonathan, making a statement openly about the atrocities here. And you're going to see an all-out battle because Boko Haram is serious. They're well armed, they're funded, and they continue these atrocities, and you're seeing the effects. Schools are closing, people are scared to move in the territory, and the Nigerian military and security services have to get their hands around this in a way that doesn't violate human rights, and that's a difficult challenge for them.
Let's talk about another problem that happened in Syria. This is a pretty important development. We already know about the radical Islamists who are there. We know about some of the people doing the bidding of al-Qaeda there, but a very interesting thing happened there.
Yeah, we talked about the split between ISIS, one sort of very extreme group, and Jabhat al-Nusra and al-Qaeda. What happened in Syria was very interesting. A guy by the name of Abu Khalid al-Suri, who was a very senior, even core al-Qaeda guy, tied closely to Ayman al-Zawahiri and also had fought with bin Laden, was killed, was assassinated in Syria. He was there in part to broker discussions between the factions.
He was Zawahiri's envoy.
A little bit, yeah. I think you can call him his envoy or his ambassador. And he was killed, it appears, by ISIS. This is the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or Syria as it's called. And so that really ratchets up the fighting between these two groups. They were already fighting, and there was already this division, and you already saw al-Qaeda push aside its relationship with ISIS. But this was a direct assault on an envoy from al-Qaeda senior leadership. And so you're going to see more and more escalation of the fighting between the jihadis, and we'll have to watch this very carefully.
And then quickly, the last point we want to make involves something that happened in the UK.
Yeah. British authorities have arrested a guy by the name of Mozambique. For those who followed terrorism and followed Guantanamo in particular, you'll recall that Mozambique was an individual arrested in Pakistan in 2002, was in Guantanamo, was released in 2005 to the UK, and became an activist for detainees. A real big voice in particular in Britain around the issues of detainees. In fact, sued the British government over his own detention. He's now been arrested along with a few others, tied to his recent trip to a training camp, it appears, a terrorist training camp in Syria, and his support for terrorist actors in Syria. This is an interesting moment because it reflects not only this guy coming full circle, but also the concern that British officials have over what Syria is bringing. And we've talked about it before, not only the foreign fighters in, but the support networks that are growing around it and the foreign fighters that flow back. And that's a real concern for the British officials. That's why they focused on Beg, and we'll just have to see what kind of case they can make against him, because they couldn't do it before, which is why he was free. Now they've got him in custody.
And this goes right up against all the warnings about operatives that have gone there and might be heading back to their home countries to carry out some kind of local attack.
Absolutely, and the British have been the loudest in sounding the warning bell on this, and this arrest is an example that they're taking it seriously.
All right, Juan, thanks as always.
Thank you, Bob.
And thanks to you for watching Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. We will see you next time.